Holy God of sunshine and birds chirping in the morning, we give you great gratitude for this week of relaxed temperatures and bright days and signs of life in the world. We give you thanks for all of the people gathered here this morning and those online, and we give you thanks for always the way you accompany us in our journeys. And now touch us this morning with your word, with your wisdom. May the meditations of our hearts and the words of my mouth be acceptable in your sight, you who are our rock and our Redeemer. Amen. One of my favorite memes on social media, and I've been able to love it throughout my time in different states because it's about the Midwest, which is great, is it actually declares there are 12 seasons in the Midwest. You've probably seen it. It starts with winter, and then there's Fool's Spring, and then second winter, and then the spring of deception, third winter, mud season, actual spring, and then summer, otherwise known as road construction season, hot pollen explosion, false fall, second summer, actual fall, and then of course Christmas. I always see that and it always makes me laugh because there's always an arrow that points, you are here, wherever you are. And as I walked away from my daughter's daycare on Friday morning, carrying her balance bike over my shoulder because it was warm enough to bike to school on Friday, I thought, yay for false spring, yay for the false hope that it brings. But then I thought, it doesn't bring false hope. Even though we know it's not going to last forever, even though we know this is a little snippet of relief, the rejuvenation that we feel from just a few days of warmer winter temperatures and the sunlight that we absorb brings real hope, real reassurance that there will be an end to the snowfall and the slush and the wind chill and the challenging car situations, and there will be a resurgence of planting and walking and biking and enjoying the outdoors in just a little while. It's coming, I promise. And we know because it feels just like this. If that much hope can come from just a few days of wintertime and limited sunlight, imagine how the disciples must have felt. When the disciples see Jesus standing bright as light with Moses and Elijah, their first instinct is to somehow ensconce them there, freeze the moment, capture the encounter forever. They see him in the company of perhaps the two most prominent and important figures in Jewish history, Moses and Elijah, both long dead, but both anticipated to return to the Jewish people. This incredible occurrence, this moment of great significance, this presence of the divine is for the disciples both enlightening and terrifying. See, just prior to this morning's readings, Jesus has informed the disciples for the first time that he expects to be killed and within 3 days raised. And then he encourages all of his followers to themselves pick up their cross and follow him. So it must have been with some serious confusion about this mystifying prediction weighing heavily on their hearts that these disciples follow him up the mountain and look up and see this incredible occurrence, the presence of the divine reflected on Jesus' skin. For the disciples, suddenly they understand. Suddenly, in this sacred moment and this holy moment, they have certainty about something they only previously suspected. It is a moment of clarity where they understand Jesus' true nature and purpose, perhaps for the first time. And suddenly, they understand themselves differently. They understand their commitment in a whole new way. They are redefined in that moment, in their identity, in their call, and in their responsibilities. Occasionally in life, we have moments like these, sacred experiences where we sense the presence of the divine, moments of stunning clarity, where we suddenly understand ourselves anew and understand our future to be radically different. Occasions we feel as holy because they give us insight to what is most precious and to which we are afraid to leave behind. Because we know the moment we walk away, everything going forward will be different. We know that there may be triumph, but there also may be danger. We know that there may be joy, but there also may be grief and pain. We know that it will never feel the same. For instance, delivering a child to college for the first time, holding court at the bedside of a dying parent, packing up all your earthly possessions and moving out of state or out of country, leaving the doctor's office after the diagnosis, walking out of a well-loved job into starting your own business or starting retirement. Moments like saying, "I do," or moments like signing the divorce papers. I remember the moment 3 years ago, after the quiet anticipation and preciousness of pregnancy, after the delight of holding my daughter for the first time, the joy of introducing her to grandparents and friends who visited. I remember the exact moment when I felt the weight of what I had done. The significance that I would soon be leaving the hospital with the precious thing that I had spent 9 months looking forward to, and I had no idea what to do next. I remember the internal panic and disbelief. I remember that I just wanted to build a tent and stay cloistered in the maternity ward forever, in the afterglow of birth, savoring the moments with this new being and being taken care of by nurses and staff, and not thinking about what would come next. I remember thinking, are they really going to let me leave with this baby? Isn't someone going to vet me, check my references, find me as unqualified as I feel right now? I was thankful later to be reassured by many brothers and sisters that all parents have that same panic attack. It's not just ambitious single mothers who second-guess themselves and their worthiness to be parents. I like to call these periods moments of liminal space, moments that seem to be alive and pregnant with meaning, sizzling with significance, overflowing with vulnerability, or grasping at hope. Moments that snap, crackle, and pop with the energy of God's grace and connection. The word liminal comes from the Latin word limen or limen, meaning threshold. Any point or place of entering or beginning. So liminal space is those occasions of occupying both sides of a mystical boundary or a threshold at the same time. Moments when barriers dissolve, when the separation of our worlds disappear, when God breaks into our lives. Here in Transfiguration, as in Jesus' baptism, when God's voice rings out over the waters and the mountains, that's liminal space. It's in those liminal spaces where God reaches out to us. It is in the liminal spaces that fill us with light and help us endure the world below, the world of the cross, the world that has the ability to break us and is yet never beyond God's redemption. Liminal space is also a time of revelation and redefinition, a time when we gain clarity on what matters and is most important to us, when we have a moment to reflect on what makes us whole and how to protect it and cherish it. Helping a child enter their next phase of life brings up every milestone and memory created up to that point. Attending to a dying loved one naturally leads us to gratitude for sharing in their life. Recognizing immortality pulls life into stark focus on what we value most. These are often moments of personal transformation and recreation, moments when we redefine how we plan to go forward. But it's not just individuals. Organizations and larger bodies have liminal space as well, collective times of transition that we straddle what once was with what's next. And congregations are great at this. They're a great example because they encounter so many periods of liminal space in the life of a church. Transitions of pastors, a visioning process, perhaps a capital campaign, All situations where we seek clarity on what matters most to our full church body. We try to bridge what matters from the past to redefine ourselves for our future ambitions, all while honoring our Christian calling and honoring the wishes of church members. These periods can be unsettling, but extremely productive in the life of a church. And as church members, we get the benefit of watching and participating in them many times over, this process of conscientious transformation. In other large organizations, transitions in liminal space can be much more turbulent. I believe we are in a liminal space in our country right now, a place where we redefine what matters to us as a people. This is a time in our country, as volatile and alarming as it is a time where we are actively waking up and reflecting on who we are and what it means to be American, to be a neighbor, to be a friend, to be a law-abiding person, to be a citizen or an aspiring American. For decades, we have taken these things for granted as we involuntarily slipped into a world of deep disconnection and distrust of others. We've retrofitted our lives to relate to machines more than people, to complain rather than volunteer, and let online interaction substitute for real connection and real community. But we are now glimpsing a bit of light and a bit of truth of what we have had and what we care about. And we are redefining our role in cherishing and sheltering those things. We are learning again what neighborliness is all about by using our technology for caring, for creating community, text threads that share news and information, that identify resources for people in crisis, and for showing up in person to check in on each other. We're learning again how to take care of each other's well-being by banding together to fill freestanding fridges on sidewalks and increase food drives across the country, delivering groceries to neighbors in hiding and other ways that we are donating to those in need. We're learning again how to protect each other, with volunteer brigades escorting children to school, patrolling sidewalks with whistles, and forming crowds if we see people being mistreated in the streets. And we are learning again how to be civic-minded, demanding more from our information services, more from our elected leaders, and more from ourselves. Even when our world feels this confusing, this intimidating, this upside down, Americans are putting ourselves on the line for other people's integrity and well-being. We do not have the luxury of not acting. We do not have the luxury of building a tent on a mountaintop. Like the disciples, we have a sense that our role has been redefined. There is something beyond where we are now, and we have been charged with building hope and faith that a better world is possible. To the disciples overwhelmed by the presence and voice of God, fallen to their knees in fear, Jesus reaches out his hand, touches them, and reassures them. Get up and do not be afraid. They must go forward, but Jesus shows them that they will not be alone. They cannot stay on that mountaintop, but Emmanuel, God with us, will go with them. God who made the heavens and the earth and all that is within, God whose greatness is so vast that not even the heavens contain it, is there where we are, in the liminal spaces, willing to break through the barriers, to still our fears and bolster our hearts. God is not just a brilliant cloud of mystery, not only a voice thundering from heaven, but also a human hand laid upon a shoulder with the words, "Get up and do not be afraid." Jesus leads us up the mountain, and then Jesus brings us back down. We will leave this liminal space and face the uncertainty together. We can descend the mountain and return to the world, confident that God will be with us as we go forward. God comes to us in those liminal moments that we may draw and listen without being afraid. The season of Epiphany opens with God calling out over the waters in Jesus' baptism, "This is my Son, with whom I am well pleased." And it ends with God reiterating, "This is my Son, the beloved, with whom I am well pleased." But then God adds, "Listen to him." The baptism of Christ is for Jesus to be affirmed in his call. The transfiguration is for us. It is a charge to be transformed by everything. It is a charge to take our mountaintop experiences, our sacred moments of liminal space, and use them in following divine light. We must continue to put one foot in front of the other with courage. It is only through taking the next step that we will ever know all that God has in store for us. But we do not need to be afraid. May we continue to follow the divine light where it may lead, and may that light continue to transform all that it touches. Amen.